Welcome to IT Hour on KMET 1490.
Hello and welcome to IT Hour, a popular show where we focus on best practices for a better IT experience. I'm your host, Brad McDermith, and you're here with our co-host, Matt Creed. It's Wednesday and we're back on KMET 1490, the start of July, with our Africa heat here in Southern California. How you doing, Matt?
Oh my God, it's so hot. It's way too hot. And I mean, I feel bad saying that because I know there's different places that are hitting like 120, 130, and I'm complaining about like 102. But once you break that threshold of like 98, it doesn't make a difference. It's just hot.
Well, I'm sure people really empathize with us here in information technology, where we spend all day long in air conditioning.
Yeah, luckily I got solar right before summer, so I've pretty much lived in AC. I had to step outside to get to my car, and it's like, oh no, turn on the AC in the car, come here, turn on the AC here. It's just, yeah, that little bit of walking I have to do, it's still too hot.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're garnering a lot of support.
Yeah.
Well, today Matt's going to help us process some topics, and today's topics include Windows 11, cyber insurance, the cloud, and some news items. And yeah, I did say Windows 11, Matt. What's going on there?
Yeah. Windows 11 is a thing. Apparently everyone thought it was going to be a leak because we weren't ever supposed to have a Windows 11, but Microsoft came out and it's a real thing, and there's already a test environment for it.
Yeah, I was a little shocked to see that. But you know what? We need to do a correction. Last week's show, we announced, the MSP 501, the biggest award in our market space here, the 501 top managed service providers in the world have been announced over the last 2 weeks. And last week we announced that we were winners, but we announced that we were number 143. And Matt, we were actually
142. Well, it's good because I had actually said in the last segment at some point that as long as what we said was accurate, as long as 142 didn't say otherwise, but we wore 142, so we're good to go.
That's right. So we're one spot up in the authority ranking.
Hey, I'll take
there.
it.
So the correction is we are number 142 on the MSP 501, and actually they're now releasing a new list called the Next Gen 101. And that is for the folks that can't make it to the 501, so they're extending it. So it's actually the 602 list.
Yeah.
So let's get on to Windows 11, Matt. Tell us what this is all about. I was under the impression that Windows 10 was the end, and it was just going to go to Microsoft Windows, and we were going to get pushed all of the updates from then on, and this was going to be a direct push update thing, and that we were done with the this release path the way it was historically.
Yeah, I mean that's what Microsoft said, but at the same time, you can never resist making a quick buck by pushing out a new product. Luckily, I mean there are a lot of improvements that are coming along with it, based on what we've seen, especially in the security industry in general. But yeah, definitely not what we expected for what it's worth. And it is going to leave some computers in the dust, unfortunately. But if you are following our standard best practice for replacing your devices every 4 years, some places say 3, we go with 4 in particular here. You probably shouldn't fall in that bucket, because I know it is a requirement. You have to have at least, I think, 8th gen Coffee Lake Intel processor, and those came out in 2017, I believe. There's also some pretty standard requirements as well, but I'll be real with you at this point. If you're not meeting some of these, you're probably not really up to date in general as it is, because this is pretty basic. You have to have 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage space, a video card with DirectX 12, which pretty much everything even on board has that nowadays. The biggest thing other than the processor part is what's called TPM 2.0, which is going to be a requirement, which is Trusted Platform Module. Pretty much what that is it's a technology that provides security related functions at a hardware level. So rather than having software to hold encrypted keys, functions for tamper resistant stuff for your files, things like that. This is actually hardware that does that all for you. For example, with BitLocker on your hard drive, instead of having those keys, you actually have a piece of hardware on your computer that stores those keys, and that's what unlocks your hard drive and items like that. So that's probably going to be the biggest part that we're going to see, because a lot of computers don't have that by default. Also, one of the other upgrades, if you can call it that, and I'm interested to see what your opinion is on it, Brad, is Microsoft has updated the BSOD. It's still the BSOD, but it's actually the black screen of death now. They got rid of the blue part of it. It's like, why would you go and change it from blue to black?
Do you really want my opinion?
I'm sure you don't care. But
my opinion is that just like we are used to changing history, the blue screen of death has such a negative connotation. The only thing they could do is try to get rid of the negative connotation. That's my only technical takeaway.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. You're changing something that's always been there, but
it still has the same acronym.
It's still BSOD. They just changed it, the color from blue to black. So, shame on them for that, but they are doing that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is it still giving you the same information? It's still the
memory
memory dump.
Looks identical to the blue screen that's in Windows 10. It's just black.
It still means you're screwed.
Yes. Either way, you're out of luck. Maybe they're just like, black represents death better than blue does, I suppose.
Right. So some good news is it's a free update from Windows 10 users.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see a similar period like we did with Windows 10, where it'll be free for so long, and then, there's always ways around still getting it for free through legit means, but they probably won't make it as accessible as it was back then, and then that'll probably go away at some point, and they'll start charging.
And I'm assuming there's going to be like a hardware pre-check or something to say, yes, you have the TPM 2.0 module.
Yeah. They're not going to let you upgrade it without TPM 2.0 and any of the other base requirements.
So I think I hear you saying, right now, this is just brand new news, but in terms of, your hardware planning, if you are planning your fleet replacement, you're doing end of life device cycle management, as long as you're buying all of your new computers with TPM 2.0, then you are doing all of your Windows 11 planning. And then, of course, the other minimum specifications that you mentioned, CPU, obviously nobody's buying their computers with less than 4 gigs of RAM. Shouldn't be buying their computers with less than 8 gigs of RAM. And then you're basically Windows 11 ready. Even, obviously, you're not buying your computers with Windows 11 today, but you're buying your computers Windows 11 ready.
Yeah. And other than TPM, I couldn't even tell you in the last 4 years that we've sold a computer that had less specs than what these requirements are. Nice part is we're still just in the preview mode at the moment, so we still have plenty of time. And Microsoft isn't ending their support with Windows 10 until October 14th, 2025, which will actually hit just over the 10-year mark since it's been out. I can't believe it's been that long already. 6 years since Windows 10 came out. I remember when Windows Vista came out, feels like it was yesterday. But so we'll still have support for that. But this is a good warning going forward for us and anybody else in our industry. Hey, going forward from pretty much this day on, as long as you get devices that meet the specs for Windows 11, you'll have no problem making the transition when the time comes.
So it sounds like we're kind of in like a 10-year operating system life cycle now. We got 10 years from Windows 10. And hopefully maybe we'll get about 10 years out of 11 when you talk about the extended life or when you talk about the extended support cycle too.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds accurate. I wouldn't be surprised. It's been pretty typically what they've done in the past with other operating systems as well, because they still support them a few years after the new one comes out.
Right. So I want to go back to end of life device cycle management and hardware life cycles. This is a tough one for organizations to get their brain wrapped around. And, everything has a life expectancy to it.
Yeah.
And, you get roughly, let's say 20 years out of a car. You think that's fair? People these days don't usually drive cars near as long, right?
These days, not typically.
Maybe 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. But in the old days, people kept their cars for 30 years.
Oh, yeah. They were built to last that long.
They were built to last, right. What do you get out of your cell phone, maybe? 3 years?
This is probably the longest I've ever owned a cell phone, and that's literally just because I'm like I'm going to run this thing into the ground. But I'd say 3 years. Typically, the life of your contract or your phone, you're pretty much replacing it once that's done, which is normally about 2 years.
Right. How long does a human being last? About 75 years,
Yeah,
right?
75,
80 on the high side.
if we're lucky.
So everything, a loaf of bread's about 2 weeks, right? Maybe, unless you freeze it.
Not my loaf of bread.
I mean, of course, if you don't eat it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Okay. So everything has a life expectancy.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if you leave the loaf of bread beyond its life expectancy?
Yeah, it's going to get gross.
That's right. What happens if the human being goes beyond the life expectancy? Doesn't operate at its optimal, does it?
No.
And what happens if you leave the car past its life expectancy? It starts to break down,
Yep.
starts to need additional repairs, and it can fail. It's the same thing with the computer. It's the same thing with the server, a switch, a router, a wireless access point, any other IoT device, or any other electronic device. Manufacturers say 3 years. We know that they shortcut it a little bit. We know that 4 years truly is that sweet spot.
Yeah.
When you take a computer, a PC, and we're talking about business application here, and you make your employee use it once you've loaded a bunch of new software on it that has newer requirements, it's breaking down more, it's got a higher risk of component failure, and it's not operating optimally, that your employee is underperforming because they're waiting on the computer. They're waiting on repairs. You are getting diminishing returns out of that computer. You are going to get a return on your investment when you're replacing it as close to that 4-year life cycle as possible. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about hardware life cycle replacements. And that's why it's critical when we're talking about getting optimal value out of information technology. That's one of the layers, is keeping software within their support agreements. So, we're getting all of the latest updates. We've got access to the support teams at the software manufacturers, and the same with the hardware, that we've got support, and that hardware is relevant and not legacy hardware, not old. And that's what happened with Scripps Healthcare. They were behind the end-of-life device cycle management. We pointed that out a couple shows ago.
Yeah, there's a ton of reasons why you would want to replace end-of-life devices for security reasons and items like that. It's funny because I actually just had a client recently where I had sent them their EOL list, and they pretty much wanted to replace everything but one computer because the employee had said, oh, yeah, it works fine for me. Like, there's no issues there. And it's a 10-year-old computer, which is way, way, way beyond where it should be for end of life. And also ties into what you said with productivity from your employee. They're not being able to meet their expectations. Some of these users don't even realize that they're not even close to what their potential could be because of the device they're on. They're just used to that. So we had replaced their computer. I mean, we went from a 10-year-old like i3, it was 9 or 10-year-old i3 with like 4 gigs of RAM, and we got into an SSD i5 with a more later generation processor, and all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, I wasn't okay on my previous device.
Right.
And they're realizing, hey, yeah, there is a huge performance increase. People just get stuck in what they're used to, and they don't realize where technologies come. So obviously for security reasons and all that, but I do like that you touched on the productivity level as well.
I just saw an IT assessment come back for a prospective customer, and they had over a 12-year-old production server. It wasn't their only server. It was one of the servers.
Yeah.
It was just hosting an application. It's still in production. They haven't had anybody do an assessment and look at that and tell them. And since it's still working, no one knew. They had no idea how many electronic threat vulnerabilities they have just sitting there, how big their risk surface is.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But, one of the reasons I really like to highlight and bring up and just illustrate the whole life cycle and life expectancy is because, we go through as account managers so many meetings where customers are saying, replace the computers already? We just went there. Time stands still. and we don't realize it. I mean, I can't believe my kids are 5 and 9 right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe that my computer already just needed to be replaced. So we don't realize that that's a brand new computer. Well, I know it still looks brand new. I can't, my car already needs to be replaced. But you know what? We're going to get back and cover Server 2022 as soon as we come back from these messages. And if you would like to contact us, you can call us at 888-804-1MSP. You can email us at ithour@computeroptions.net or follow us on Discord.
Attention residents of the Inland Empire. If you or someone you know is shopping for a mortgage, turn to one of the fastest growing mortgage lenders in the Inland Empire, Arrowhead Capital Mortgage. We offer a variety of loan products and options to help you and your family get into the home of your dreams, and we make sure the process is easy. Don't miss out on these historically low interest rates. Call now, 909-335-0430, or go online to www.ac.mortgage. That's 909-335-0430 or www.ac.mortgage. NMLS ID 267884, Equal Housing Lender. Call for additional cost information. Other restrictions may apply.
Hi, are you ready to join a well-established managed IT service company? California Computer Options in Redland, California is currently seeking full-time remote work for Level 1 technical consultants and small to medium-sized business network operations center engineer, Windows Systems Administrator. Please contact us at California Computer Options 909-793-6338, 909-793-6338. So you're a business owner. You might be a doctor's office or a bakery, or maybe you're a financial advisor. And no matter what your core business is, there's no denying that technology plays an important role in your daily operations. Unfortunately, as we've grown more dependent on modern technologies and systems, IT failures are starting to directly impact our ability to do business, in some cases with catastrophic consequences. Think about it. What happens when a server crashes at your office or your entire network fails? Your first step likely includes a phone call to a tech support line, where you'll troubleshoot a few things to try to determine the cause of the problem. If that doesn't help, you'll need to get a technician to come on site and try to fix things. And what happens while you're waiting? Your business suffers. The doctor's office can't access patient records, the bakery can't process inventory, and the financial advisor can't input customer data. So while you might think of technology as being secondary to your core business, the reality is that without it, many companies would find themselves at a complete standstill. And as we all know, time is money. That's where our fully managed approach to IT can help. With proactive remote monitoring and management, we're able to keep tabs on your IT infrastructure 24/7, 365 days a year. And when a problem does arise, our technical experts can quickly resolve it, in many cases before you're even aware that there was a problem at all. For an affordable fee, we'll provide the monitoring, technical support, and full problem resolution you need to stay productive. If you want peace of mind, call California Computer Options at 800-804-1-MSP.
And welcome back to our next segment of IT Hour, back with Matt Creed.
You know, I got to say, you were joking before we started saying the IT Power Hour. I think we need to rebrand. I like that. Let's put power right in the middle.
Okay, IT Power Hour. Here we are. So in the last segment, we were just talking about Windows 11, something that we didn't think would exist. And so we've kind of plowed through Windows 11 and what it looks like. Preparation for end-of-life device cycle management for managed clients here. And so along with the new generation of operating systems from Microsoft, always comes a new generation of server operating systems. Would you like to opine on that a little?
Yes, Windows Server 2022, which actually looks pretty interesting. There's a lot of cool features that are going to be in it. Also requires TPM 2.0. So good thing we've definitely been speccing servers with that. It'll also double your memory from 24 terabytes up to 48. Your processor logical cores goes from 512 up to 2048. Your max virtual machine memory goes from 12 terabytes to 24 terabytes. There's quite a bit of improvements. It also has huge dual functionality hybrid capabilities with Azure that it did not include in the previous server. So that'll be nice as well, especially with a lot of companies looking at going cloud-based. And with Azure, you can have on-prem as well to utilize both best of both worlds kind of thing. Also, we're going to be looking at some functionality. Not a whole lot of details on this just yet, but it's actually really, really cool, and probably one of the ones I'm looking the most forward to is patching without having to reboot. So,
wow.
they haven't really given us a lot of details on it yet.
What a breakthrough.
But that would be huge. Could you imagine patching during the day? You don't have to wait until night. No downtime whatsoever. And like I said, they've been very scarce about the details of it.
So let's talk about why that's so important real quick. I mean, patch management is, we got a whole group here that just deals with patch management.
Oh, yeah.
And we have reboot windows set up for every organization, and especially in manufacturing, where we've got 24/7 manufacturing, in order to coordinate those reboot windows is just incredibly difficult, where you've got those 24/7 lines going. And so the logistics of planning the reboots for production servers and stuff is just, it's very difficult, and especially reboots with call centers and workstations and those things. So logistically, that could be a huge win in terms of management, patch management.
Oh yeah, especially as an account manager. Like you said, we have clients that they never stop. There is no hours of operation where they're not working, so that'll be a huge improvement to have. I'll be interested to see how they plan on doing all that, but those are details that they said will come out in the future.
Do we really believe that Microsoft's going to get rid of the reboot?
Knock on wood, I'm hoping they are.
Now, we've heard promises a little bit like this in the past. We've heard consolidated reboots. We've heard less reboots. This kind of feels a little bit like broken promises from before.
Yeah, that is obviously a concern, especially because, this is just a preview build. It doesn't mean any of this is going to actually ship when it comes out, and that's happened in the past as well. But if they can't pull it off, it's going to be huge for the IT industry, I feel like.
Isn't it a little ironic that kind of Windows 11 is a little bit of a...
Yeah, we shouldn't be getting this in the first place based on what they had originally said. But, we're here. We got to embrace what we got to deal with. So
it's a nice promise, and it really could be a huge win logistically speaking and management speaking. So that's definitely something to look forward to, especially from the server side.
Yeah.
And I would say that hopefully your provider is ahead of the game. We surely have been. We have not deployed a server, and I think in a couple of years without TPM 2.0. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've not been able to be ahead of that as long on the workstation side, but we are now, and that's in alignment with the life cycle replacement cycle for the workstations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's some other cool ones, like there's an open source protocol called QIC that they're going to be utilizing that'll actually let you use SMB file sharing remotely without having to use a VPN. And it's going to be secure and meet all the standard requirements. So that'll be nice as well. If you have people working from home, they can access your file shares. I don't have all the details on it, but that's one of those other things that's going to be coming out as well. But being able to access all of your file shares across the internet without VPN and being secure is going to be good as well. It's just another step we get to eliminate from the end user that, doesn't create a problem when it doesn't work, kind of thing.
Yeah, huge security implications there.
Yeah, there are huge implications with that, but we're not 100% sure just yet.
Okay, great. Yeah, it sounds like as we get more details, we'll be able to do more planning. So, one of the things that, I know a lot of people are wondering, why are we spending so much time talking about new hardware and new on-prem operating systems when the cloud is such a big thing? And we spent so much time talking about the cloud. And if all the servers are disappearing and they're going to the cloud, why are we still talking about this? And it's amazing to me in large organizations where compliance and policy and attorneys are involved, really how much pushback we get in account management and how much those items right there keep cloud infrastructure from moving, and how much IT roadmaps get held back from moving infrastructure to the cloud because of these items. I want to bring up a couple examples, and I know you probably got some examples, but just a couple examples we've worked with in the last couple weeks that I listened to from some other account managers. And we've got a legal team that's very concerned with 365 migration because they are public and they're a government and a public agency, and the public information requests to Microsoft, if they were to go to 365, they're afraid that could be an issue. Whereas I know that Microsoft just last week was up in front of Congress complaining about all of the federal information requests that they've got. And that started in the Obama administration, went through Trump, and now in the Biden administration. And they continue to get more and more of these federal information requests that that they think are unconstitutional or whatever. Well, now the public board is saying, hey, the same thing. Look at it. Normally, public information requests would come to us in our Exchange database, and we would process that. Well, now maybe that can just go directly to Microsoft, and you're going to get something without going through our legal system. And so that's a concern. So that's a barrier to moving infrastructure to the cloud. Kind of a weird one, kind of a strange one. It used to be costs. It used to be complexity. It used to be they were afraid of security. Now here's another issue. It used to be rolling out maybe MFA. So there are so many barriers to getting there. We've got a lot of other issues where public boards are still concerned with, well, if we move the infrastructure to the cloud, what are the optics around security? Well, we've in great detail over the past couple shows have talked about our layered security approach, virtually identical to the cloud versus on-prem. And there's a lot of benefits in terms of reducing the single point of failures. We don't have to worry about power. We don't have to worry about connectivity. We don't have to worry about physical security. We don't have to worry about hardware failures. We don't have to worry about HVAC. There's so many things that we don't have to worry about from a provider standpoint when we've been able to move to a level 5 cloud data center, or this advanced cloud infrastructure. But we're still really worried about the optics of security with public boards or private boards. And so we're finding that there's still a lot of pushback. So why are we talking about servers? Because there's still a lot of servers out there, and there's still a lot of political reasons why infrastructure is not being moved. And so, I want to tie those things in together, and I'm sure you're still experiencing a lot of that too. I imagine that you've got a lot of enterprise clients that you oversee, and you do a lot of VCIO work, and you realize that it's not really technology. It's not connectivity that just a few years ago were the limiting factors, but there's really a lot of politics as we get into large organizations that holds back the infrastructure migrations.
Yeah. Politics are a huge aspect of it. And I mean, honestly, from my perspective, I don't think in any foreseeable future we'll ever be up at a point where on-prem is completely eliminated. It also just depends on your line of business as well. I think for sure that cloud-based servers are the future, and I think for a lot of people, the majority, that's going to be the way to go. But I think at a certain level, depending on how your business operates, the people that we're going to see that have on-prem still, the best solution, I mean, factoring in cost and all that as well, but the best solution is going to be a hybrid situation with what we were talking about with Server 2022, having that like Azure Arc integration and all that kind of stuff that you can do with that. Because at the end of the day, until we have internet at a point where it'll never go down, which is a nice dream to have at the moment, there are going to be companies who can operate when their internet goes down. And you can't do that unless you have at least a hybrid form of situation where, you know, you have all your infrastructure in the cloud, but you have on-prem as well, to marry those two together, where if your internet or something goes down and you still have power, you can still work. And I've worked with clients that have had that situation and have that set up as well, or are working towards that kind of infrastructure setup. That way, you know, hey, especially in this heat, we're seeing power outages, we're seeing internet outages. I've seen a ton of internet outages lately, especially in our areas, where they can still function as long as they have that hybrid setup with cloud and on-prem. So I don't think we'll ever see on-prem completely go away, but yeah, I think moving to the cloud is definitely the way of the future. It's just finding a way to marry the two for businesses that need it.
Well, being here in Southern California, we've got a lot of clients specifically in certain locations that have a much bigger problem with power than they do internet connectivity. So the hybrid model or even the cloud model for them is much more attractive because losing power cuts them off completely.
Yeah.
But being in the cloud, as long as they've got internet somewhere, then they're completely up. And that goes for VoIP as well as the rest of their network infrastructure.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, especially if with power outages, cloud is essential because I can send my employee home and they can keep working. Whereas, you know, if your power goes out at your office, there's not a whole lot of anything going on unless you have a backup generator.
Well, and especially if that's your hosting center.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time that we're in right now. We've been in a hybrid world for quite some time. And there's a lot of providers that only have cloud clients. They don't recognize the need, they don't recognize the space anywhere outside of that. And, but yeah, definitely going to be in a hybrid world for a long time. And there's some clients that can be purely in the cloud and not have to worry about those scenarios where internet's down. They've put in a lot of additional investment into hardening their connectivity, SD-WAN, multiple different providers. They've got backup plans for 4G or whatever else in terms of accessing the internet and getting to their offsite infrastructure in many different ways. So they've been able to harden that and mitigate their risk against downtime and not getting to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of cost savings there too. I mean, especially like if you go full on cloud, like to the point where everything in your infrastructure is cloud based and you can just have thin clients at that point. You don't even need to pay for computers. You'd have to have a pretty robust solution to make that work, but there is cost saving that comes along with that as well. And I definitely think, cloud in general is it's where we're going. That's where we are, honestly, but we're going to see it a lot more in the future as well. It's just how redundant do you want to get as far as having hybrid situations, stuff like that. But I do think we are hitting a point nowadays where on-prem is just not ever going to be the final end-game solution for a company. Best case hybrid situation, but it's just not going to work that way in the future.
Yeah, well, we've seen two major factors in solution engineering. One is scale, and two is the application into the industry. AutoCAD type things change it a lot in scale.
Yeah.
But we'll get back and touch on that in after this segment, and we need to stop here in a minute and listen to our sponsors. But this has been a great discussion about cloud versus on-prem. I really appreciate your insights on that, Matt. And but if you'd like to contact us about any of these subjects or any assistance in IT, you can call us at 888-804-1MSP. You can email us at ithour@computeroptions.net or follow us on Discord.
Contacts, calls, chat, and meetings with ScreenShare, all accessible in one place. Now it's easy to work anywhere on any device with no friction. Brilliant! The smoothest communication and epic collaboration in one simple, unified tool. Save time, reduce costs, toss the fragmented tools, grow faster, get happier. Work instantly improves when communication and collaboration happens in one tool. Make calls, read voicemail, chat, have video meetings, and more, all on your browser. And all of this is instantly available with zero setup or configuration. It's business done better and the productivity solution you need. Talk to us today to learn what our proven UC solutions can offer your business. If you want peace of mind, call Telecommunication Solutions from California Computer Options at 800-804-1MSP.
Attention residents of the Inland Empire. If you or someone you know is shopping for a mortgage, turn to one of the fastest growing mortgage lenders in the Inland Empire, Arrowhead Capital Mortgage. We offer a variety of loan products and options to help you and your family get into the home of your dreams, and we make sure the process is easy. Don't miss out on these historically low interest rates. Call now, 909-335-0430, or go online to www.ac.mortgage. That's 909-335-0430 or www.ac.mortgage. NMLS ID 267884, Equal Housing Lender. Call for additional cost information. Other restrictions may apply.
Hi, are you ready to join a well-established managed IT service company? California Computer Options in Redland, California is currently seeking full-time remote work for Level 1 technical consultants and small to medium-sized business network operations center engineer, Windows Systems Administrator. Please contact us at California Computer Options 909-793-6338, 909-793-6338.
And it's Matt and Brad back on the IT Power Hour.
Yes.
To coin Matt's phrase there. And we are talking best practices for a better IT experience. We've been talking Windows 11. We've been talking Server 2022, a whole new generation of operating systems. And we have been talking about why servers are even still relevant today in what seemed to be the era of the cloud. And but really, it's the era of hybrid, and it's the era of cloud for some people. It's the era of on-prem for others. But really, the middle looks like hybrid for a lot of people for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so we talked about some of the objections that we're facing in the enterprise world, where we've got public and private boards. There's pushback. There's logistical barriers to entry in moving to 365 or G Suite, whether it be files or mail. And so there's still a lot of challenges, and that's what ultimately keeps this hardware discussion that we're having still relevant. So you gave us a lot of great feedback, Matt, and explain why TPM 2.0 is really important, and how we're bringing a lot of that stuff down to the hardware level now in terms of encryption and really multi-factor authentication. So you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of in hand with TPM, there's also one of the things we're looking at is with the future of processors. It's actually available now on the newest Xbox console for what it's worth, but it's called Pluton Security. It's kind of the same idea as TPM. It's kind of marrying TPM with BitLocker, which with VBS and a few other things, but essentially what it'll do is it'll add an extra layer of security where it'll hold that information just how TPM holds it on hardware. It'll actually hold it on the CPU. So that'll be really interesting to see how that all works in the future. Mainly, the main reason they're pushing this out is because with TPM, while it is most definitely going to be necessary going forward, there's already going to be people who are finding ways around it. And this just adds a different layer of security on top of that within the processor. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Very good. All right. So one of the other big things right now with the ransomware and cybersecurity landscape becoming more and more of a focus in America here is and with managed service providers assisting companies in getting their tech stack up to date is cyber insurance policies. Governing boards are mandating having cyber insurance policies. Depending on your different industries, you've got compliance needs of now making sure that the cyber insurance policies are in place. Maybe you have loan covenants that require cyber insurance policies. Maybe you've got compliance requirements from other places. Maybe now when you get bids over a certain size, if you're in construction or another industry, maybe the bids require that you have cyber insurance. There's a lot of new cyber security requirements coming through one way or one source or another, but now there are cyber insurance requirements. Just this last week, I met with 2 cybersecurity insurance brokers from New York, and they said that the underwriters are only picking the cream of the crop in terms of the insurable. And they said, I mean, unless you've got virtually all the check boxes checked, you're not even insurable at this point. And so it's really making everyone step up the game. Then there's a small range of, if you're insurable, what's your premium's going to be. Now, if you want the A+ premium, you got to really, really be on the ball. And I'm talking about all the little things. You've got DMARC properly configured for anti-spam. You've got protective DNS forwarders. You've got MFA at every external system. You've got an EDR system at very minimum. You've got device baseline configuration tracking. You have every layer that we've talked about in perfect working order. You've got, NOC managed systems. You've got 24/7 help desk. Then you're looking at being insurable, and then you're looking at getting that A+ premium. But so, I mean, the standards are high, and the CISA documents that we talked about as being that baseline, that's still a pretty low bar, and is not necessarily going to anywhere make you cyber insurance insurable.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, pretty much it sounds like they're at the point where they want you to practically not be able to get hacked to insure you. So I'm sure they're making good money on it, but it definitely is 100% what people should be doing anyway. So I'm not surprised they have that kind of standard.
Yeah, they absolutely want to hedge their risk. And,
oh yeah,
and they don't want to pay out.
It's insurance in general, right?
Absolutely. So we just want to keep touching up on these subjects as they're changing rapidly here in our industry.
Yeah, the expectation that I remember when I originally got my first big checkbox of things for cyber insurance like a year ago, which I think I mentioned briefly last time. It was a lot smaller than it is nowadays. That is 100% for sure.
Every single review of an existing policy we see has got a whole new section on it.
Yep.
And every new application has got new stuff that we've never seen on it. luckily, we're doing all of these things. We're keeping everybody there. Sometimes it does require changes for the clients, and then we find out that it's generally not a technical problem. It's usually a logistical exercise to go through. But yeah, they're getting more and more stringent, and that's what we want to bring up and highlight.
Yep.
So let's move on to it looks like not so happy meals for McDonald's favorite dining institution.
It's nothing sacred.
Nothing sacred. I figured if Starbucks stopped pouring coffee, the world would come to a halt. But I think that this trumps that. It looks like McDonald's, America's favorite burger chain, said hackers infiltrated and stole data from its systems. But no U.S. customer data was breached. So this is another PII leak. And luckily, McDonald's seems to be ahead of it with a new investment in several of their systems. And so just run a report that no major name, no major institution seems to be safe from data breaches. And the reason we point this out is because it's critical to the dark web scanning layer that we've got in place. It's critical to password policies. This is why we're keeping passwords changed on a regular basis. This is why we have GPOs in place. This is why we're scanning proactively to find out what's floating out there. We don't want stale credentials and things like that. So let's talk about specifically what happened. Maybe you use the McDonald's app. Maybe you're getting delivery from McDonald's. Maybe you're using any of the membership or rewards type programs or any of that type of stuff. That could be your data, and that's why that's why we do the dark web stuff. That's why we've got password type policies in place.
Oh yeah, I mean dark web scanning in general. When I tested it on myself, I mean there's sites that you forget you even sign up for. That information leaks, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but that stuff is tied to this stuff, and it's a snowball. One thing gets hacked, especially, and let's be real, a lot of people use the same password over and over again. It's just gonna snowball out of control, and all your stuff's gonna get hit.
That's the problem. That's it. And we don't know. And that's the other thing. We assign passwords. We're not, at least in terms of all of the business categories for users. Part of our password policy is to assign passwords and not allow them to pick passwords using password generators. All little granular things to minimize the vulnerability surface.
Yeah, but that also ties into what you've mentioned previously with the politics aspect of it. A lot of the times you pre-generate a password for someone, they're not happy with it. They don't want the QXW7Z /*. It can be hard to deal with, especially on an account manager level.
It really is. And you almost have to kind of do this whole radio show in advance just to show the value of why we're not allowing them to pick their own password. Yeah, but my password's complex. Yeah, it's the same complex password that you used in 4 different platforms.
Yep.
Or 24 different platforms. And then that also dovetails into network documentation and password keeper type functionality. Here's a place to keep all of these passwords. Here's a place to keep them updated. That's protected by multi-factor authentication. And really just it's important that all of these items actually connect to each other.
Yeah.
Password policy connects to not using the same password over and over again, keeping those passwords in a safe place, not keeping them written down anywhere, not keeping them in text files, and so on. And I mean, the Starbucks, the McDonald's, the places that we go all the time, these people are getting hit with these types of breaches. Some of the breaches get exposed, some of them don't. We don't want to have to keep track of the news and everyone that's getting breached.
Yeah.
We need to have the right defenses in place from a provider standpoint. So next, the National Security Agency of the United States discloses hacking methods it says are used by Russia. Well, why is Russia so important? Well, it seems like every single story somehow goes back to them. They seem to be just have a little bit of blood on their hands here. And so we have talked about Russia quite a bit, how Russia at the top level has not put any constraints, and ransomware as a business, ransomware as a service, ransomware as an industry has run wild. So we've got a lot of interesting stuff coming up here. And Matt, I know you've got a lot to talk about on this subject.
Yeah, so many things to discuss. The government actually pretty much told us what we already knew. Most of the attacks are brute force related, and I'm sure I'm butchering this, but one of the most commonly used tools is what's called Kubernetes. It's an open source tool that was developed by Google for cloud infrastructure stuff, and they're seeing a lot of it targeted at government sites, mainly Office 365, but also other cloud platforms as well. But of course, their remedy and their suggestions, which is what we've been preaching this whole time, is stuff like MFA. Having your email security layers like we've preached this whole time, and pretty much the redundant stuff. They didn't really tell us anything we didn't already tell all of our listeners already. So that's pretty much where we're at.
So the fact that we've taken a multi-layered approach, just talking about 365 specifically, cloud-to-cloud backup with unlimited retention, specifically integrated mail security backup using AI technology, and then multi-factor authentication. There's a lot of people running out there with Office 365 deployments that are completely naked. And then Microsoft actually exacerbates it and makes it even worse because they've got several similarly named security services that are baked in, that are kind of free or premium services that don't cut the mustard. Yeah. And that really makes it a lot worse for folks. You know what? This discussion is really important. I hope we're able to continue it next week. We're out of time, Matt. This was a lot of fun. Thanks. We're going to see you back this time next week. Wednesday, 4 o'clock. If you'd like to contact us, you can call us at 888-804-1MSP. Email us at ithour@computeroptions.net or follow us on Discord. Here's wishing you best practices for a better IT experience.
This has been IT Hour on KMET 1490 AM. Join us each week Wednesdays at 4 p.m. You can email us at ithour@computeroptions.net or join us on Discord by going to KMET1490am.com, head over to the IT Hour show, and click on the Discord link. Thank you for listening, and here's wishing you best practices for a better IT experience.